Hey, it's me Nalthazar, and welcome to another Magic the Gathering Puzzle Quest video. In today's video, I'm going to be going over a new rare from Dominaria United called Herd Migration. So, let's get into it. Herd Migration is a really interesting card to enter Puzzle Quest for really one reason. Herd Migration creates a whole bunch of beast tokens based on your domain. And that's interesting because Garruk Unleashed exists, who has an ability that makes it so that your first non-token creature gets leader beast, and then you reinforce that creature 3 times by making 3 beasts. So, if you use Herd Migration with Garruk, you can make a creature you control get reinforced a whole ton of times, especially if you're able to find a way to increase your domain. Domain is a new mechanic that has entered Puzzle Quest with the new set, and it reads, your domain is equal to 1 plus the number of colors among support gems you control when the effect triggers, with a maximum of 5. So you're at the very least going to get 1 token from this, but you definitely don't want 1 token for 20 mana, and you're going to be able to get up to 5 tokens. Now, I found that in my deck building with this card, I ran into a few difficulties, which is that green has a bunch of amazing gem converters, but green's amazing gem converters are all green, which means that if we try to build around green with its amazing gem converters, then as we look at them, you'll see that those amazing gem converters are all going to be green gems. So Dryad Arbor is green. Colony Garden? Well, yep, that one also green. Glorious Sunrise? Yep, you guessed it, it's green. Nissa's Pilgrimage? Also green. So you kind of need to get creative in your deck building, and that means you're going to want to run supports that have colors other than green, meaning that you can't just go all green conversion and then laugh your way to victory. I found that I really liked pairing the card with Pyromancer's Goggles, in part because Pyromancer's Goggles is a colorless support, and in part because Pyromancer's Goggles meant that I was able to fetch a whole bunch of copies of it and play them for no mana, which meant that my creature of choice wound up getting really, really big. Over 100, quite easily, in many of my matches, from nothing to 100 in no time. It was faster than a Bugatti, so that was pretty nice. I also really like running the Kami War because it's every color, so there's really only a 20% chance it's going to enter the board as green, which means you've got an 80% chance it's going to be one of the other colors, which is probably going to increase your domain for a few turns. So if you've got this, you can drop it down, you get some removal, and then you're also going to get your domain up, which is pretty sweet. I tried out Coalition Relic, which is what you see right here. This card is garbage. Don't use it. It's bad. Now, in terms of what creatures you're going to want to use in conjunction with Herd Migration, it follows the same general principle of, well, pretty much any Garruk Unleashed deck, which is that you're going to want to bring in some kind of really big, mean green baddie. So I wound up deciding, hey, I want to try out Titan of Industry. I just pulled it for my booster crafting gems. So I wound up trying it out, and I absolutely loved it in this deck, because if it has Vigilance, Defender, or Reach, it's going to enter your first slot, and then that creature is going to be the one that gets the buff. However, Woodland Bellower is also another amazing option, as it's an 8/7, so it's actually going to reinforce for more than our Titan of Industry will, and that makes it really powerful. I wound up personally running Sigarda, but that was just to keep my Titan alive. Now, for you personally, what you're going to want to do is just go to your creatures and look for what are some of the biggest, baddest creatures you own, and then try them out. If you wanted to try a pauper version of the Titan of Industry, you could even use something like Brambleworm, right? There's really not too much difference between Brambleworm and Titan of Industry. Okay, well, that's kind of a downright lie because you don't get the shield counter, but it's pretty close, honestly. They're both going to have Vigilance, they're both going to have Vigilance Reach, they're both going to have Trample, they both have 7 power. The Brambleworm just happens to have 6 toughness, but if you're able to give it leader and then buff it up, then you're going to wind up stomping on your opponent, and that winds up being a really good cheap option. You can also use something like Avabrook Caretaker, but getting +4/+4 isn't nearly as exciting as getting like +8 If you've got a bunch of origins, you might have the Sky Snare Spider. This is another good choice for the same reason that I outlined earlier, that it has reach, and putting reach means it's going to go into the first slot. So you could also use Dwynen Guiltleaf, another origins card. I'm just trying to point out some cards that maybe more of you have in the event that you don't happen to have the Titan of Industry, because there are a lot of ways that you can run this. If you like going boom boom goes the dynamite, you could even run Gaia's Revenge, because this thing has the most power in Standard right now. So that thing reinforces crazy fast and ends games really, really quickly. Also, it has hexproof, so you're probably not going to have your opponent destroy it. So that's really it. I want to go ahead and show you guys some gameplay. Don't want to take up too much more time. There's not much more to talk about herd migration. Don't put it in any other deck. It's really not that good otherwise, because making these 4/4 beast tokens is entirely unexceptional unless you're doing something amazing, like, well, feeding them to some other creature and making them thick. So let's get into that gameplay. Alrighty, so hopping into the gameplay, I've got a Pyromancer's Goggles that I just drew, so I definitely am going to have that in my starting hand, but I don't have any conversion, which means that this is going to be a little bit slower of a match. I had a lot of matches that I recorded with this card and with this deck, and a lot of them were really, really quick. And so I feel like they didn't really highlight the interaction as fully as I wanted it to, because I just killed my opponent too quickly. 2 swings from the Titan of Industry, and that was it. And I mean, it's going to be very much similar in this one, I think, but nonetheless, it still shows the interaction of the cards, so it'll give you a better idea of how it can work. So you'll see here, I've actually got all my supports. I did wind up getting the Colony Garden, which is really good, because that means that I do have some conversion at my disposal. And there I was actually just checking my mana gains. I wanted to try and get rid of the black and blue swaps so that Ashiok would not get them, because obviously black and blue are Ashiok's colors and going to do quite a lot for Ashiok, but of course Ashiok gets crazy cascades anyways. So I'm going to go ahead, drop the Kami War. I get a Tamio Field Researcher, which is great. If you don't have Tamio Field Researcher, it's definitely a top chase card in the current Standard. Just with the recent gem conversion nerf, it's in a really, really good place. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to cast it there, just get rid of my opponent's creature, knowing that if my opponent winds up playing a creature this turn, as they do, it's going to go 2. And then I'm able to actually drop the Tamio, which is perfect, because I've also got 2 creatures in my hand, and I've also got the goggles themselves. So in order for the herd migration to work, you're going to need to have a creature down on the battlefield that isn't a token. So as lovely as my 5/5 elementals are, they are not going to be targetable by Garruk's second ability, as it does need to be a non-token creature. So I'm working my way up. I'm going to go ahead, start drawing cards with Tamio, get myself a little bit closer to the 7 shield requirement that is necessary for it. And then I'm going to go ahead and figure out what it is I want to play from my hand. I do have a green landfall on the top of the gem swap board, which is really good. So that's going to get me 8 mana, which will guarantee that I get a Pyromancer's Goggles. So I'm definitely going to go ahead and get those down. I might as well start trying to get some herd migrations off if I'm able to, just because that's going to get a bunch of beast tokens. And then I can go ahead and put down a creature later if necessary. So I do have a 5 match for green on the bottom, which is good. Here I'm going to go ahead and tap the gems on the board just to figure out which ones are going to be the Pyromancer's Goggle gems. And so here I want to get the Titan of Industry down, and then ideally I want to get a Sigarda down as well so I can give it prevent damage. I can actually go ahead and play a Woodland Bellower. That's going to be fine too, because if I drop the Woodland Bellower, then that means that I will get I'll get another creature. So by getting another creature, I'm going to give it mana. The Woodland Bellower itself is a big kid, so if my opponent kills my Titan, then at the very least I'll be a little bit closer to getting another creature down on the battlefield. So I'm just checking out my hand here. I'm going to go ahead, play the Titan of Industry, and I'm going to give the Titan of Industry the shield counter because, as you see, my opponent has a creature with Death Touch. And so since the first creature has Menace, it's not going to hit my Titan of Industry, but that second creature with Death Touch will, and that will let me get rid of that without it killing my Titan of Industry. So I know I mentioned earlier that I really liked the shield counter on the Titan of Industry. It comes in so handy, like way more handy than I thought it would ever, but it's really good actually. So here I've got a 5 match in green. I've actually got a potential match here in white that is going to get me my first herd migration. So I'm going to drop the Coalition Relic just so that I can get a support down of a different color, which is going to help my domain. I'm going to match that white gem because that is going to be a free herd migration from my Pyromancer's Goggles. And you'll see that my Titan of Industry goes from a 7/7 to a 56/56 that first turn, which means that we're going to be able to kill almost any Planeswalker in 2 whaps with that thing. And even if my opponent does wind up killing it, I've got so much else in my hand that I could play that it's really not a big deal. And then, of course, I'm already at my second ability again on Garruk, which means that this turn I'm going to be able to use my second ability, reinforce the Titan 3 more times. I've got yet another wonderful white match for another herd migration from my Pyromancer's Goggles here. And so that's going to reinforce my Titan of Industry. Oh god, I've got 2 of them, so 3, 4 more times, right? Something like that, I think. We'll see. I think 4 more times is how many times it's going to get reinforced. And then that will definitely be the end of Ashiok. There's nothing Ashiok's going to be able to do to survive that. So this swing is going to be the end. That is 4, and that's it. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.